that's I think is going to end up being a bigger deal than just a shootout between biker gangs is this situation that's going on in Waco, where two motorcycle gangs got into literally a shootout there in Waco, and what was it, 9 were killed?
I think 9 people killed. It was a situation where they were having some type of summit. Do you want to call it that? All these different motorcycle gangs getting together, and I guess they were going to discuss issues that they had or whatever at this so-called summit. The police knew that there could be trouble, and they had a lot of officers there in force, which is one of the reasons that the thing was contained. Apparently, a fight broke out. They're saying it could have been something as simple as a parking space.
Well,
and next thing you know, they're stabbing and shooting.
Let me tell you the thing that I'm getting in. The police did some shooting.
Sure, they did
in this situation, and here's the concern that I have, and that people in this country ought to have. That has to do with let me couch this in as carefully worded language as I can. There may be some connection between these biker gangs and the Mexican drug cartels. Now, that's in Waco, Texas.
Yeah.
And if that's true, that means that we're across the border.
This type of violence is not something that we are used to seeing in this country to that level, and it's something that happens every day in Mexico is the point. I mean, they're dealing with this type of violence, multiple deaths and gang shootings and slaughters. I mean, in Mexico, if you read any of the stuff that's happened over there, they've literally had whole buses full of students disappear and all 26 be just taken out and executed. So you're right. I mean, if there's a connection there, that's the first time on our soil.
Now this summit, it makes it sound like these are guys that are old guys like John Travolta and whoever those guys were in the Wild Hogs movie that just on weekends get on their motorcycles and ride. But these gangs are basically criminal organizations.
I have not, and that surprises me too, that it is in the national press, but generally they've just not beat it. They've not beat it to death like they do a lot of stories, which always makes me a little suspicious that there could be a connection between something that they don't necessarily want to call our attention, the drug cartels, illegal immigration. I mean, who knows what all this involves, because I really don't know much about these gangs. You did say something mention that the police did some shooting. I think it will be interesting, and that's maybe a little cynical of me, but right now it's very obvious that the police contain this.
Bunch. And they got guns. People have a right to, they can protect other people, they can protect themselves, all of that sort of thing. And if what I have heard is going to happen, or has happened, then we better be prepared for all kinds of problems.
So, I mean, what are you hearing? I mean, can you not say?
Well, no, I'm hearing that these guys are somehow involved with the Mexican drug cartels.
Okay.
You know, these criminal biker gangs are involved in making money, just like criminals. It's all driven by money. How do they do it? They do dope. They sell dope.
Let's just cut to the chase, because I really don't know anything about it. Are these white gangs or Hispanic gangs?
No, the ones that we've seen in Waco appear to be white guys.
So we're thinking that the white guys are maybe somehow muling drugs,
or somehow affiliated.
From across the border, which motorcycle gangs, notoriously in the 60s, at their heyday in this country, they were involved in drug activity and organized crime. And it's much different than the I call wannabes. you know, the guys that are riding around and enjoying their Harleys, and in a group of guys riding motorcycles just trying to look tough. You know,
No,
that's
they
not a
look-
motorcycle gang. Those are guys that are just out riding, having a good time. But these are serious gangs. These are people who are involved in organized crime, prostitution, drugs, whatever they can get into, right?
That's exactly right, and it's mostly they've been somewhere else, not here. California and the southwestern part of the country have been kind of, that's where you hear about them. So, in October of 2010, Lexington police performed a traffic stop on a known burglar whose name was Richard Darnell. A canine officer, means he's got a dog, alerted on the vehicle, and the search led to the discovery of marijuana and two duffel bags full of stolen property, masks, a police scanner, burglary tools such as sledgehammers, gloves, saws, and pry bars. Darnell, 44 years old, was interviewed by the burglary detectives and admitted to committing numerous burglaries in Lexington. He described burglarizing business as his work and described himself as a professional. He went on to explain, "I only break into businesses because I know that if I went into a house, I would not be eligible for probation or minimum parole eligibility. That's the reason I go into business." And the police compared the security footage from several area convenience store break-ins, and the physical description matched this guy, as well as the masks they found in his car. The stores reported that the primary things stolen were cartons of cigarettes, some money, and he took cash registers. His criminal, now this is the deal. And don't forget, how can you avoid crimes? Criminal records show that Darnell has a total of 26 prior felony and misdemeanor convictions, mostly for burglary and related offenses. He's been in and out of prison since 1989. He's violated parole 3 times since then and served out his last sentence in April of 2010, 6 months before the arrest that the police stopped him for. This guy pled guilty to burglary, 3rd degree, it's another business, and persistent felony offender in the 1st degree, and he was sentenced to 12 years in prison. Guess what? He'll be eligible for parole. He was eligible for parole in 2013, and guess what? The parole board let him out. Now, in that situation, what can we do there? Number one, let's keep him in, and then when he comes up for parole, you go to the parole board and make a presentation and say, look, this guy's a high rate offender. When you guys let him out, he commits crime after crime. If you keep him in, he won't. Now, who do we owe more to? The thugs that do this sort of thing, or the people who sit out, play by the rules, obey the law, pay taxes, and expect government to protect them from the thugs? Obviously, we owe more to the citizens, but that's not the way the criminal justice system is working now with these high-rate offenders. So, we're pretty fired up about it.
Well, but there's really not much of an incentive for the way that our justice system is set up, the way the corrections is set up now. They actually benefit more if they let people out, because to them it's money off their books. It's the head counts down. It doesn't matter the damage that these people do while they're out, even though we know that this burglar right here costs the community a lot more money than it would have cost to keep them incarcerated. I mean, that's just a fact. But that number is just passed around and spread amongst all of us, so there's nobody that really has to deal with the brunt of that except the individual victim. And that's sort of what's jacked up about this. That's a jacked up way of looking at it, saying that, well, it's cheaper to let this person out because we don't have to pay the $60 a day or whatever. That's not true. How much does he steal?
Well, but you see, the cost of crime that our state has done is to pass it to victims and take it off the books for the criminal justice system.
And there's no accountability. I mean, look, if I have a vicious dog in my house and it comes out of my yard and bites someone, I'm going to be sued, and my insurance company's going to have to pay up. I may have to sell my house if it's bad enough, because I'm responsible for containing that animal that I know is vicious, especially if I knew it was vicious, right?
That's correct.
But these criminals, the people that let them out, they're not held accountable for what they do when they get out. You can't go back and say, I'm going to sue you because this person killed my loved one. Why? And even prove that you should have known, because you're going to look at their past criminal history and any reasonable person, and we're going to look at statistics and say, you're an expert in this business. You have a degree in criminal. These people, you're educated, and still based on that education, you decided to let this person out of jail when you know statistically they were going to recommit, and now someone's dead. I'm suing you. Can't do it. They're like, well, we're not responsible. Who is responsible? There's no accountability.
Well, the criminals are watching what happens in court based on these wimpy sentencing laws, and the message to them is pretty clear: crime pays. Why not? I'll take a chance. Chances are I'll be probated anyway. Let me change the subject here for just a minute. We had a trial in the last few weeks. It was a vehicular homicide trial. Somebody was charged with manslaughter in the second degree, and it was basically a drugged driving case. Marijuana in the system, and we tried the case for 2 or 3 days, and the jury came back with a not guilty verdict.
This is not about whether he smokes pot. I wasn't there, but I guarantee you, this is not about that. He was not impaired. You can't make this about whether or not this person smokes marijuana. This is about, and the jurors, well, I guess you're right, but there's a common sense thing, and it's just all in societal attitudes. There are people that really believe that it shouldn't be a factor in something like this, and that's something you have to deal with. The whole mindset. And the thing with the drug, it's taking us years to get people to understand that drinking and driving is not cool. It's not funny. It's not cool. At one time it wasn't taken as seriously, not by the police, not by people that drink, and we had to get a big pile of victims before finally organizations like MAD, they got it. We are where we are. Everyone knows now it's not cool to drink and drive. It's not fun.
We got to go through the same process.
We've got to make people understand. Listen, this isn't funny either. This is bad stuff, and you've got to take it seriously. And until we get a big pile of victims, people are not going to get it. I don't think juries are necessarily going to get it, and certainly the people that are. There's a certain amount of irresponsibility that goes along with being a pothead anyway.
Well, let me ask you this. I haven't seen statistics on this, but what percentage of the population uses marijuana or smokes marijuana or whatever?
I truly don't know the stats on it. I can, if I think of 10 people that I know that I don't know but suspect may, I probably could put about 3 of them in there. We've got to hide it from me, but that's just the way things are now. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say it's as many as 2 out of 10 people probably are smoking pot regularly now. It's just it's reasonable. That's probably what
yeah. So it's a question you don't ask a jury because are you a pothead?
Yeah.
You don't ask that question because all of a sudden they're going to say, well, that's none of your.
That's right.
Yeah.
So if you do have a juror that happens to be sympathetic to that, then that's going to impact their thinking too.
I would throw Gatewood Galbraith off the jury if he was still.
Yes. Gatewood made no bones about his thinking.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
All right, now.
We'll see you next week on In Touch.